Well, hello everybody and good afternoon. Welcome to North East Water's community webinar series. In today's webinar, we will explore the water treatment processes we use to ensure clean and safe drinking water for our community. My name is Jo Murdoch and I'm the Managing Director of North East Water, and I'm delighted to have you all with us here today. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands and waters on which we operate and are meeting today. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today with us. Now, before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items so that we have a smooth session. So please note that all audience members have their cameras and microphones switched off for this webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available via our website after the session. We'll send you a link to access the recording afterwards so you can share it with others, and we hope you do. We encourage you to ask questions. You can submit your questions at any time using the Q&A, the questions and answers function on your screen, and we'll try to address as many of those questions as possible during the Q&A segment following the presentation. But if we don't get to all questions and answers, we will put them up on our website with this webinar. So thank you. Now, before we dive into our main topic and I introduce our guest speakers, I would like to give you all a brief overview of North East Water and what we do. Essentially, we plan for and provide critical water and sewage services to 39 towns across a 20,000 square kilometre region, and our service region is the northeast of Victoria. We serve over 120,000 people, ensuring they have access to high quality, clean and safe drinking water. We operate 21 water treatment plants and 22 wastewater treatment plants, and our extensive pipe network includes around about 1,300 kilometres of sewer mains and about 1,800 kilometres of water mains. Our assets are valued at $1.6 billion, and we are committed to investing in and maintaining our infrastructure to meet current and future needs. And you may or may not know, but we have one of the lowest water bills in Victoria and across the nation. Our average water bill is around about $1,040. We also, before we go on to that slide, I did want to mention that we are committed to using 100% renewable energy from 2025 and net zero emissions by 2035. We also, another fun fact, we also survey about 2,000 customers a year, and from this, we survey them, an independent survey, and from this we do know that customer satisfaction for North East Water Services is around about 94%. So I do want to thank all our customers who are on this webinar today for the trust and support that our customers put in North East Water. And finally, look, I'm really proud to say that we employ 208 local employees who I can say all provide exceptional service and support for our community. They're committed to to North East Water and to our community, which is great to see. Now, just before we go on to the main topic, I think it's really important that I share with you that North East Water recently launched our new corporate strategy following 12 months of engagement with various customers and key stakeholders across our region. Now, Strategy 2040 sets out our vision for the future, where North East Water proactively contributes to a healthy environment, thriving communities and a prosperous region. Strategy 2040 also makes very clear that our purpose is to deliver safe, sustainable water and wastewater solutions for our communities. It responds directly to the challenges of climate change, population growth, rapid technology advancement, and changing customer and needs and expectations. It's also it's a future where we're looking at embracing a future where water is transformed into valuable resources. First Nations peoples, customers and employees are highly valued, and our services are fair, accessible and affordable. It's also a future where we're continually scanning the horizon to stay ahead of trends and emerging issues, leveraging our services and infrastructure to support the prosperity of the region. And I should say, in Strategy 2040, our number one priority is clean, safe drinking water which is the theme for today's webinar. So thank you once again for joining us. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce my fellow presenters, Jess Littlejohn, our Manager of Water Treatment and Quality, and John Day, General Manager of Environment, Systems and Operations, who are both online. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Hi, everyone. My name's Jess. Thank you for that introduction, Jo. And appreciate everyone's time today jumping online to learn more about water treatment process, because it's great to see so many faces out there. So we've got a jam-packed agenda that I'll try and get through in the next 20 minutes. I'll give an outline of the water sources that we use, a little bit of information about our water treatment plants, drinking water treatment specifically. I'll mention our distribution systems, the regulatory framework in which we operate under, which is really important, management and monitoring, and mention some of our treatment challenges and talk about our PFAS risks. So as Jo mentioned, North East Water's #1 product is safe drinking water. So we operate and manage 21 water treatment plants that supply 38 towns across our region. We extract raw water from rivers, which is called surface water, from the 5 major river catchments across the northeast. We also have one groundwater source in Wangaratta that we can use on peak days. So if the demand is very high and a hot day during summer, we can supplement the supply with the groundwater. Or likewise, if the quality of the river water is poor and difficult to treat, we can also swap over to that groundwater source. So the greatest risk to water quality is pathogens. So pathogens are a group of organisms made up of bacteria, viruses, and protozoan. You might have heard some of their names, such as E. coli or Giardia. They're pretty much the bugs that you don't want to ingest. So when we extract water from our rivers or groundwater, pathogens or contaminants are naturally present in our catchments as a result of the catchment activities such as farming, recreation, logging, and the presence of septic systems. So if a human ingests these types of pathogens, we can become very sick with gastro-type symptoms. So our aim is to remove all of these from the water that we deliver. You might have heard the term turbidity before. Turbidity is the cloudiness or the haziness of the water that's caused by suspended particles. And turbidity is really important because the pathogens like to hide on the suspended dirt particles in the water. So if we're removing the turbidity and producing clear water, we're also removing those pathogens. So how do we do this? So as I mentioned before, we manage 21 water treatment plants, and shown here are 3 of our most recent plants, Myrtleford, which was constructed in 2011, Corryong in 2012, and Bright in 2016. So across our organisation, we invest heavily in ensuring we are creating safe drinking water, and we're constantly upgrading our infrastructure based on emerging risks and changing guidelines. We've got significant further investment over the next price period to add further treatment processes to our water treatment plants, such as installing UV reactors. So water must be treated to make sure that it's safe. And how we do this is through a number of multiple treatment processes at each of the treatment plants. We call this a multi-barrier approach, where there's not just one barrier that removes contaminants from the water. We have a number of barriers to prevent failure. So these barriers or treatment processes can include raw water storages. We also add chemicals to aid in flocculation, such as alum, which causes the turbidity particles to join together, which is easier to remove during the process. We also add some chemicals to remove other compounds or contaminants, such as if we've got algae in the water, we can sometimes pop powdered activated carbon or PAC into the process that adheres to those algae particles and falls out and cleans the water. And the last step in the process side of things is filtration. So you'll see a photo there of our Yarrawonga media filter. So we have very large filter beds that are made up of coal and sand layers that the water trickles through, removing again the contaminants and the particles. And our final step is disinfection. So we use a combination of chlorine and UV, depending on the catchment risks. Once our treatment plants have done their excellent job of making the water safe, we have additional infrastructure that houses and distributes water across our network that we also need to protect to make sure we're not recontaminating the product that we've made. So the distribution system must remain integral to just prevent that recontamination. We do undertake reactive and preventive maintenance with hygiene in mind. You might have seen our crews out working to fix, say, a water main burst. Hygiene is always first on our to-do list and front of mind for mains repairs to make sure that we're not introducing additional contaminants into that water. But the fact that we do have chlorine in the water helps in that aspect as well. We're also embarking on a major program to update 78 of our water storages, which we call clear water storages, that are spread across the network. We've also recently built some new tanks at Oxley and Moyu and also Devonish, which further protect that water supply for those townships. So the safety of drinking water and what we do here at North East Water is heavily regulated by the Department of Health, and they have a strong regulatory framework which we operate under. So we operate under the Safe Drinking Water Act, which is a piece of legislation, and then under that legislation sits the regulations. These regulations make sure that we have risk management plans in place to ensure that we're delivering safe drinking water, and also that we're compliant with water quality standards. There's also some rules around informing and involving the Department of Health if we have known or suspected contamination. We also operate under the Australian Drinking Water Guidelines. You might have heard these referred to as the ADWG, which use evidence-based approach and the most recent science to set guideline levels for particular chemicals and contaminants in the water that we supply. So to ensure that we are managing risks effectively, we've developed a drinking water quality management system, which instills a proactive approach for risk prevention and mitigation. At its heart is continual improvement. So we're always learning and improving our systems based on what the risks are at the time. And as I said, it provides that real structure for managing risks to safe drinking water. A key component of our management system and of the Department of Health legislation is that we are externally audited as a business every 2 years to make sure that we are adhering to our management system and addressing the risks adequately. So we maintain what's called a catchment to tap approach to ensuring delivering safe drinking water. It's not just the water treatment plant that we focus on. That is a very key component of what we do, but we need to ensure that we're managing contaminants as much as we can and focusing on reducing the risks of the whole water cycle that we're involved in. So all the way from the catchment to the customer's tap. So a key part of our management system is continual management monitoring and review. So each day and on weekends, our hardworking operations teams are constantly checking and analysing water quality data that's coming in and out of our water treatment plants. We do this through a highly developed SCADA system where key parameters like turbidity and pH are continuously monitored. So we can log on to the computer at any time and understand exactly what the water quality is at any of our plants. We also have site visits on a daily basis to our plants. There's nothing better than having people out there actually smelling, tasting and experiencing the plant to understand that the processes are working correctly. We've also got a sophisticated set of programmed trigger points and alarms in our water treatment plants and our process steps, so that if water quality reaches certain trigger points or limits, the plant will automatically shut down, stop producing water, and we can take action for that. So this last line of defence ensures that we are maintaining water quality 24/7. So you are always guaranteed safe drinking water coming out of your tap at any time of the day. Another key part of our management system is our sampling program. Each year we collect and analyse upwards of 80,000 samples, so individual water samples, to verify that the water is safe. An external laboratory undertakes the analysis for us and alerts us when results are high or need investigating. So that's the comprehensive process that we undertake and the structure in which we're able to respond to additional challenges. Over the past 3 years, we've really seen a significant increase in the number and the extent of green algae blooms across our region. This photo here was taken at Tallangatta in June of last year, which is very unusual for an algae bloom to be persisting through the winter months. So that causes us some treatment challenges at a lot of our plants to make sure that we're extracting that algae from the water before it goes through our treatment process. Another aspect of blue-green algae blooms can be the production of taste and odour compounds, which are referred to by their names as MIB or geosmin. And you may have experienced an MIB or geosmin taste in your water. It's often tastes dirty, as if there's some dirt or some organic matter, and it can also have an odour. These naturally occurring compounds that often come from algae but can come from other sources in the soil are not a health issue, but do make the taste and smell unpleasant. So we are often challenged by high levels of MIB and geosmin in the water. We have a treatment process called powdered activated carbon that we can employ to extract those compounds. For all of you that live in this region, you will have experienced the extreme weather events that we are now dealing with on a day-to-day basis, really. So increased flooding, increased storm events, and of course the impacts of the major fires in 2019 as well. We're still experiencing water quality impacts from those fires, particularly in the Hume Dam. The catchment area was widely burnt, and of course, after fires come rain, and rain washes lots of contaminants and nutrients into the reservoir or the Hume Dam. And we've actually found that levels of manganese and iron have been very high in the dam over the last 2 seasons, which also causes us a treatment challenge. And this picture here, I should preface this by saying this wasn't one of our locations, but this is what manganese can look like at very high concentrations coming out of the tap. So we also have additional treatment processes that remove manganese from the water, but that's something that we're constantly monitoring and making sure that we extract from our product as much as we can. You've probably seen some recent media coverage about PFAS in drinking water arising from a change in some US guidelines. So we at North East Water have been undertaking sampling in our raw water sources on a risk-based approach for the last 5 or so years. So we do have quite a robust data set. What I mean by risk-based sampling programs is that we've assessed all of our raw water sources based on the catchment activities, both currently and historically. And if, say, for example, there was historic evidence of firefighting foam being used in the region, then we class that area as being potentially high risk for PFAS, such as Wodonga with the Bandiana barracks. So that has then influenced where exactly we monitor and sample for PFAS in our raw water source. So the towns that we do monitor are Wodonga, Wangaratta, Yarrawonga and Waganya. We're constantly updating our risk assessments based on current science and current knowledge about catchment activities, and we will continue to do that. We are working very closely with the Department of Health, who set the guidelines for PFAS concentrations in Australia. And we are awaiting a guideline review that's happening currently with the National Health and Medical Review Council are reviewing the Australian PFAS drinking water guidelines, and we are keeping abreast of updates in that space. That's all I have. Back to you, Jo, for the Q&A component of today.
Thank you very much, Jess. That was really informative. I might now just take a moment to let everybody gather their thoughts. And if you've got a question, can I ask that you please pop it in the Q&A chat function? Because I do have the experts here. I've got Jess here to answer questions, but I've also got our General Manager of Environment Systems and Operations, Don Day, who is also online to help to assist if we need with answering of any questions. So I'm just keeping an eye on that Q&A function. I don't have a question yet at all. But I might throw a question out there if I can, Jess, while people are gathering their thoughts. One is around our compliance levels. So North East Water, I understand, was 100% compliant last year for drinking water quality. Do you just want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Jo said, we're 100% compliance with the Department of Health safe drinking water regulations, which is something that we constantly monitor and is a KPI for us here at North East Water, which is a great outcome. We've also last year we undertook a regulatory review, a regulatory audit, excuse me, in which we passed, which was fantastic again, with no non-compliances against the regulation and the legislation. So we've got a good track record, but we're not resting on our laurels. Again, part of the concept of the drinking water quality management system is continual improvement. So we're always looking at ways to improve the way that we do treat water.
And I do want to say thank you, Jess, to you and your team for that, because that's a really great achievement, and forward to continuing that into the future. I do have a couple of questions, actually. People have gathered some thoughts. David Cummins has asked, how does the impact of climate change affect water treatment?
Oh, very good question, David. Significantly, in short. We're seeing things happening in our catchments and contaminants and algae growth like we've never seen before. It's quite unusual, and it's not just North East Water that are experiencing these changes. We were at an event yesterday with all of the River Murray water authorities across the state, and they have also been seeing just significant changes in their catchments, increased nutrients, increased taste and odour compounds, brought about primarily by flooding, by wet weather, by more intense storms, fires, that type of thing. So look, it really does, it's at the forefront of our mind as to what's next for treatment. We do a lot of planning in the water treatment space, and making sure that we are being prepared for the next water quality challenge, for more frequent storms, fires, floods, etc. We're also doing a lot of work building resilience into our operations. So we've purchased a whole lot of generators for all of our water treatment plants for power outages that are often associated with some of these storm events that we're experiencing up here, so that we can swap over to generator power and continue delivering our product to where it's needed most. So it's definitely part of our forward-looking planning, and also our preparation, I guess, for summer. But it is definitely impacting on our treatment processes.
Great question. Thank you, David. And Donna Ray has asked, another one for you, Jess. Why is fluoride added to the water at some locations?
Yeah, great question. So the addition of fluoride to our water supply is governed by the Department of Health. So it's a health prevention mechanism that the department implements to improve tooth decay. So having a small trace amount of fluoride in your drinking water helps to protect and strengthen teeth as they grow. So the department decides where the fluoride is added based on the concentrations of populations in those towns. So bigger towns usually have a fluoride dose associated with it.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks for answering that. I've got a couple of questions here, actually. Eddie Wilson and Donna, again, have both asked similar questions. So I'm going to read Eddie's. I might ask John Day. Are you there, John?
Yep, here I am.
Right. I'm going to ask you to answer this one. Eddie Wilson's asked, you mentioned flood and how it affects water, but how is North East Water planning and preparing for the next drought?
Yeah, so we plan to prepare for our drought through our urban water strategy, which is done on a cycle of every 5 years and has an outlook of 50 years. So it takes into account the latest climate change modelling, also then applies that to stream flow modelling and storage modelling. So it will predict us the worst case scenario of climate change and pretty much standard if nothing ever happened, what we'd do. So we then look at and predict, we stay within 1 out of every 10 years a town could expect to be on a water restrictions. So that's how the sort of model works around. So obviously not run out of water, it's actually just falling back to requiring water restrictions every 1 in 10 years. In actual fact, we haven't had water restrictions since 2010. So it's been 14 years since we've had water restrictions. So we're well above that currently. But that's how we model for drought.
John, I just wonder whether you could also explain the master planning process that we're undergoing at the moment.
Yeah, so the urban water strategy feeds into the master planning. It also feeds into what we call our CARP plan, so our climate adaptation resilience plan. That then feeds in or acknowledges where we have shortfalls in water or water supply, or where we might want to do further augmentation to mitigate any issues with climate change or a drying climate or drought. Wangaratta is a great example of this, where we've identified to expand our bore system or our groundwater system at Wangaratta, and have just received recently from the National Water Grid $750,000 to actually do more work to explore and understand sustainable use of that groundwater system. So then that would mean we would have the access to surface water as well as groundwater. And that then goes into our master planning to say that for Wangaratta, and we've done this across all of our systems, requires further augmentation being influenced or supported by that urban water strategy to then for us to understand what future builds we may need.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Jess and John, for such an insightful conversation around our drinking water treatment and supply, but also around water security as well, which is all intricately linked. For our listeners today, you can find more information, in fact, loads of information on our website about this. Now, before we conclude, your feedback is so important to us and it will help us improve for future community webinars. Can I ask that you take a moment to complete a short survey by using the QR code on your screen right now, or via a link that will be included in an email that we'll send to you shortly, which will also have a link to the recording of today's session, so you can share that with your colleagues. You can stay informed about all things North East Water via our Have Your Say micro website. It's haveyoursay.newater.com.au. And if you have any further questions or need more information about anything you've learned today, please do not hesitate to reach out. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jess and John, and everyone have a great day. Bye.